Welcome back, everyone. And when you hear that music, you know that it's time to enter the dojo. And tonight, I'm joined as always by my good friend and co host, Chris, the Devy Shifu. But tonight, it's a special one because not only are we unveiling our top 10 running backs for the 2026 rookie class, but we're also joined by someone who has quickly become not just a good friend, but an essential part of what we're building here at the dojo behind the scenes. Of course, I'm talking about Mr. Ben McCown, or Benny Knows Ball, better known by many of you as the Devy Scribe. So, Ben, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing great, Dustin. Thank you for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's like what, first time, long time, right? But I'm excited to be jumping on this episode because we've been building up our lists of running backs over the last week, and I've been enjoying it in the Devy Dojo, man. Of course, my stuff is on Substack. Been really working on the rookie profile with you guys, and so look forward to definitely putting some good stuff out later on after that releases. But man, this is gonna be a fun episode.
Yeah, man. I'm super excited. And Ben, you bring a perspective that frankly no one else in the Devy space has. Like as a doctor of physical therapy, your expertise just allows you to go beyond evaluating talent, right? You're able to help us understand durability, recovery timelines, injury risks, and most importantly, how those factors impact your dynasty and your Devy rosters. So super happy to have you on here, man, bringing your expertise and your knowledge. And I'm just ready to talk some ball with my two good friends. We've been putting in a lot of work in the shadows, pumping out these profiles. So super happy to get into it. Chris, how you doing tonight, man? I didn't mean to forget about you. How you doing, my friend?
No, guests always come first, of course, and we love having Ben writing for us on the Substack. And I love the fact that his Michigan Wolverines got taken down tonight. Let's
Wow.
go. Let's go.
Wow.
Poor taste.
Wow. Low
Just
blow.
just poor taste, Chris.
I'm the troll around here. But I will say this has
Hey,
been
hey.
hiding. It's not a great situation I got over here. My desk is a mess, but this has been in the background forever. Look at that. We share this guy, Brandon Graham.
Yes. Yes.
There we
Thank
go.
you. Thank you for that poll.
Mm.
Because
I had to
that is
I had to bring that guy out. We're thankful that Brandon Graham made it to Philadelphia to be an Eagle, to retire and then unretire, and now he might retire again, and then who knows? He might come back again. Who knows with this guy? But absolutely legendary player for my Philadelphia Eagles. Thank you for him.
Let's look at the top 10 running backs, starting with number 10 and number 9.
Number 10 and number 9 for all of us. We have a nice little shout out to our boy Dev, always creating beautiful graphics for us. And you guys are locked in both at 9 with Jamari Taylor and have switched up your 10th pick a little bit. And I am completely off the board for both of you. So why don't we jump in and you guys tell me why Kalen Black and Dean Connors both made it to the bottom of your top 10 rankings for this upcoming rookie class?
yeah. So I guess I'll go first on this one, right?
Yes, sir.
So with Kalen Black, right, shares the backfield with his the backfield mate Roman Hemby for that national championship 16-0 Indiana Hoosier team. And here's the thing with Kalen Black and Roman Hemby, but they were the lightning and thunder for that Indiana team. And Kalen Black, while where he really lacks, unfortunately, is in the receiving game, but where he makes up for it is really more of as a power back, really somebody that has the bowling ball stature to him and is able to really drive. And one of the stats that I really thought was when I was doing some research into him and into his PFF and doing my profile that I did on him was he had last year an average of 3.63 yards after contact. So this guy fights for his yards. One of the comps that I gave him was on the high end, Mark Ingram, very high, right? Heisman to the level of, Pro Bowl running back in the NFL. But he kind of slots out on the low end, more like a Jordan Howard, Benny Snell type. But I think that Kalen Black, even though he was not invited to the combine, right? He's got his pro day. He did well in the Senior Bowl. I think he's going to get a glow up during his pro day and end up being an hopefully early day 3 guy. But Kalen Black, I feel like, is a perfect match for, being the Thunder in a committee backfield in the NFL. And I think he's going to play a good role play, but he's not going to be a lead back in anybody's backfield for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Ben. I I had Kalen Black somewhere in between 11 and 12. Both of the Indiana running backs I had within my top 12. Just some of these guys for me, they kind of pushed over them. Well, speaking of Dean Connors, like he's my 10th right there, and he's somebody that literally last night I just really dove into the film. I liked some of his metrics, specifically like his career breakaway percentage, his yards after contact, things like that. And so I was like, all right, well, let me dive into the tape. I haven't really been giving him much of a chance. And I was really blown away and pretty impressed. I found out that as a high schooler, he ran a 10.800 meter dash, which typically translates to about 4.4 speed. So I mean, he's got some legitimate juice out there. I like that he puts his head down and he's going to fight for yards after contact. But truly, the most interesting thing for me about Dean Connors was his receiving profile. He's a guy that goes out there and he has soft hands. Like if you turn on the tape against Oklahoma State, he has this nasty, nasty one-handed catch in the end zone for a touchdown. In fact, I put out a tweet today. You can find it at Empire Elite. I clipped together some all 22 of him, and it was a really impressive watch. He's somebody that I'm going to dive in. There are some concerns. Standing 6 foot, 206 pounds, kind of runs upright a little bit, like a lot of these tall running backs do. Kind of an easy target, but he's physical and he does lower the pads when necessary. So just a lot of good things on Dean Connors, that I really liked. And his story is pretty cool too. He was born in Hawaii, didn't get a lot of recruiting exposure. Actually ended up going the JUCO route, transferred to Rice, played a couple seasons out there. In fact, 23 and 24, he was the only player in college that year that was able to put up 700 rushing yards and 400 receiving yards. So, I mean, he profiles as a modern satellite back with some power and legitimate burst. He's pretty exciting. So one I had to include here at 10. And Chris, you and I talked about this earlier today, that once you hit like 6 in this ranking, it was kind of like pick your poison. It got a little murky around 7 to 10 for me personally. So go ahead and talk about your 10th guy there, Le'Veon Moss. That's somebody that both of us were relatively high on to start the year.
Yeah, I've always been pretty high on Le'Veon, but to illustrate your point a little bit, I had the hardest, obviously number one. Everybody, I don't want to spoil anything, but we all know who number one is for each of us on this ranking here. For me, 2 through 5 was like tough to rank in a certain order, and then like 7 or 8 on, it's just like a complete crapshoot in this draft. It's pick your poison. We're gonna get a lot more answers when the actual draft happens, but right now it's just like throw darts for the most part. And that's why it's kind of nice that we all have different players listed out here, because there's so many options at the back end. There's some guys who could certainly shoot up boards come August, depending on where they get that draft capital and which teams they land on. And it's just been interesting kind of parsing into all these guys. And by interesting, I mean incredibly difficult and tough, because it's not fun like it is in most years. But Le'Veon Moss is a guy who I've been high on for quite a while. I've loved his tape, which is funny because I'm the analytics guy, right? So I'm the guy who's usually coming in with a little bit more of a analytics and statistical background. What do the metrics say, that kind of thing. But every time I look at Le'Veon Moss on the field, he just looks absolutely electric. He looks like a big play waiting to happen. He's a dog out there. And his biggest thing is he's been unable to stay healthy basically his entire career. But when he's on the field, he looks electric. And that has been his overall detriment. And I think the reason why he isn't higher on everybody's board is because he hasn't been on the field enough just to play football and show us what he's made of. Even just now, when Texas A&M had made a run into the playoffs, he was nowhere to be seen. And there was always a little bit of talk, coming into the end of November, into December, he might be ready for the playoffs, but he was nowhere to be found. It's a shame that we couldn't see more out of him, but I think that because of exactly what I just said, the back 6, 7, 8, 9, they're so much of a random crapshoot in this draft that I'm willing to put him here at the back end of my top 10, just to let everybody out there listening know I like this guy. I think he's got the talent. And really, you're just taking random shots, pulling, names out of a hat at this point. So why not stick it with a guy that you feel like might have a little bit of upside? And for me, that's Le'Veon Moss.
Yeah, totally. And I think the concern with him has always just been health, right? Like the talent's evident when he's able to be out there, but unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to stay on the field. How much do you think it's impacted his draft stock?
I would say considerably, because I don't think,
Yeah.
Especially with the running back position, it's a position that NFL teams aren't willing to gamble too much on, because they know
Exactly.
they've caught on to the fact that it's mostly replaceable. We've come back full circle a little bit with NFL top end running backs getting paid really well, which wasn't happening for a while, but it's still at the point where a lot of these guys that aren't those high flight, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson type names are just plug and play for a lot of these NFL GMs, unfortunately. So I think that's going to affect him a good bit. I anticipate him being a very, very late round pick, or possibly just a priority undrafted free agent. But that doesn't mean that he's not worthy in this class, because the class is not very deep. So that's why I like him at number 10. And I might as well just jump right in on Chip Trayanum, since you guys have Jamari Taylor both. So I'll let it circle back to you guys. But Chip's a guy who I feel like is getting undervalued a lot, and he's had a hell of a ton of traction in getting this draft stock. He's jumped in from one school to the other to the other. He started in 2020 actually at Arizona State, and then transferred to Ohio State to play linebacker, which was what he played. He was a dual threat linebacker, running back in high school. And when he couldn't gain any steam behind Rachaad White at Arizona State, he went back to Ohio State to play linebacker for the Buckeyes. But then that same year, he ended up playing running back again. And then he was their second leading rusher the year after that. And then he transferred to Kentucky, and he still didn't get a starting role. So finally last year, he made it to Toledo. He got a chance to show us what he's made of, and it was worth the wait, because he was absolutely phenomenal last year with over 1,000 yards rushing. He looks electric on the field. He's like 5'11", 225-ish. So big-bodied guy. He's certainly more of what you would consider like a quote-unquote power back, but he runs 22 miles an hour. So he's got a speed element to him as well. And I don't know that he necessarily has, elite long speed, but he's got testable metrics telling you that this guy is extremely fast. And the way he moves on the field, it's almost like he glides a little bit. So he's not like full of a ton of Madden like spins and jukes and fun moves, but he uses that natural kind of body size that he has to be sort of a power running back with those, a one cut type of runner, but uses that speed to really break loose. And he does his one or two cuts with extreme smooth glidiness all over the field. And he's not afraid to just lean into guys. That might be part of his linebacker background, where he's just going to hammer guys. So he's always falling forward when he's running. And, no matter what is facing him head on, if he can't get away from them using his little shiftiness there, he's just going to pound them with his shoulders and then get extra yardage every time, which I love. So he's got that size speed combo that I think is very, very fun to watch. I just go out and watch his tape, man, because I really enjoy it. I know he was against, Toledo's competition, so not quite playing against the highest level of competition, but he seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. In interviews, he was talking about one of the things he's really trying to work on is receiving work. He had a little bit of receiving work this year. He chipped in a bit, but not, the route tree is kind of limited. It looks like he's reliable when you get the ball to him. He's just not going to be a guy you can really scheme a lot of, intermediate routes to. And I think that's something he could prove on a little bit. I think there's a lot of untapped potential in him. So I'm looking for him to get to a place where a good coaching staff can get their hands on him and teach him the right ways to play NFL football. And I think that he could potentially become an NFL starter.
I mean, we have a recent example of this. I mean, Ben, you could attest from being a Michigan fan. Monungai, right? Wasn't he was a linebacker at one time too. So we've seen this archetype before in the NFL. Typically, they're not going to get that high end draft capital. But if you can, football is a sport. We've said this a lot. Football is a sport where if you want it more than the other guy, you could go out there and compete. And all he's going to need is an opportunity to go out there and showcase his skills. So I do like that call, Chris. I told you today I don't really know anything about Chip, but just reading a little bit that you wrote and hearing more, it's got me pretty excited. But as you alluded to, me and Benny kind of got the same guy going on right here. And this is somebody, Benny, you were texting me about today with a little bit of it. I liked the comp that you had. So go ahead and tell the audience all about Jamari Taylor.
So I was actually watching his game against Duke in November. And also, like, the two games really for Jamari Taylor to watch: Duke in the regular season as well as NC State. Sorry on that, coach, but he killed NC State. Like, we're talking 150 yards. The guy was putting 8.53 yards after contact per attempt. Like, insane numbers. Scores a 70-plus yard, either I think it was a receiving touchdown. Just killed that game. And then I sent you this one, Dustin, just of him catching the ball against Duke, and it looked like Ronnie Hillman, man, back when he was playing for the Broncos. I loved Ronnie Hillman back in those days. Like, that was like around the Peyton Manning days, somewhere around there. But Jamari Taylor is this smaller back in stature, but he's thick, right? He's the kind of back that's got bursts, and he does have good speed, but I mean, he's a power guy for being at small stature. And I really like Jamari Taylor. I do think he's probably most likely going to be an early day 3 guy, but I'm excited to see where he goes.
Yeah, I think landing spot is going to be really crucial for Jamari Taylor. Somebody that can get him a little more disciplined. You know, the thing that I didn't like about his tape was the biggest knock that I had on him is that he was so inconsistent at running in between the tackles. He would look to bounce it outside a lot. So if he could just get a little more consistent with that, because he has decent vision, I think it's just he relied on that burst that he has to out athleticize. Is that a word? Use that athleticism to maneuver around the defenders rather than consistently putting his shoulder down and just knocking him effort down. And that was the thing that gets me excited. I do like these guys that are of smaller stature that can kind of hide behind their blockers. And as a defensive guy, those ones are hard to see, especially for the linebackers when they're trying to bear down and you can't see the running back, right? And then his stocky frame that he has, he's able to knock him over and run with some power. And then he's still got enough burst and speed to house call it. So a lot of good things from Jamari Taylor. The only real knock
to add, though, Dustin, is actually he had 55 missed tackles forced in 2025,
yes,
which is actually ranked 4th in the P4 schools.
Yes, sir. And that would rank like what I think 3rd in this class. It's 3rd, somewhere 3rd through 5th. Someone will have to fact check me on that, but I know that it was relatively
we know who number 1
is. Draft class. We'll get to that. Don't bury the lead, Benny. Don't bury the lead. We'll get to that. But yes, a lot of good things about Jamari Taylor. Of course, I do always have questions with these guys of lower level competition. And then when you transfer up, he kind of struggled against some of his better opponents. So you do have some question marks there. But his tape is a lot of fun. He's somebody that our good friend Mike, too, of the Dynasty Dogs podcast, him and I were texting back and forth about him as well. And he's going to be a really fun stab in those 3rd and 4th rounds of your rookie drafts. I think it's really ultimately, again, going to depend on DC, that draft capital, right, and landing spot with a lot of these running backs. Of course, we know it is always important. But Chris, my man, let's keep this train rolling. Let's go to 8 and 7. Let's see what we got. Oh, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Damon Claiborne's making an appearance on all 3 of our lists, and so is Nick Singleton, where there's just a slight divide on where we have them ranked, but that makes it pretty easy because we can just talk about both these guys. And I'll just jump right in and talk about Nick Singleton since he's number 8 on my list. And obviously I'm the Penn State guy. I love this man. I want nothing but success for him. Even I was a little bit surprised that I didn't have him higher, but when I list this entire class out, it's just tough, man. He's got all of the things that you want as a NFL running back, but they all seem to be in prior years. Obviously, his 2024 year was best. Watching him this year was painful, and honestly, watching all of Penn State this year was kind of painful, as we all know. And if you've been a longtime listener of the Devy Dojo, you've seen me go through it. But he just wasn't great. He ceded the backfield fully to Katron Allen at this point by the end of the season. They had been a great 1-2 punch, and it seemed like Katron was more of the primary focus for a lot of this season for good reason. Singleton, I saw somebody describe it as it seems like Singleton is a magnet and every defender is wearing metal armor. Like he was just running directly into people this year. The
Yeah.
elusiveness that he had previously displayed had been gone, which is a shame because both me and Dustin were pretty high on him coming into this year. I think though that there's some, obviously he's injured now. You never know what might have been going on behind the scenes. Sometimes those injuries are lurking and then they arise, in more prominent form and in more immediate form after the big break comes. So you never know what could have been dogging him earlier in the year. He really is one of the more complete backs in this draft class if everything's right for him, and everything's wrong. He was trending down coming into this draft class, and he's not going to be able to compete at the combine now because of this injury. So nothing looks great. I think that he's getting way too much buzz right now in the draft circles because of his name and because people remember him from 2024. And that pains me to say, but I'm not willing to spend a mid-second round pick on him in Superflex Dynasty rookie drafts. That's just not where I'm going to take him. There's other guys I'd rather take there. So I feel like other guys are saying, look at what he did in 2024. Look at what he did since he's been a freshman, and saying that he's going to be a good value. And I think that might be true, but there's just no reason to roll the dice on that when there's other running backs or even wide receivers that you could take at those slots of your draft capital. I do think, though, that he is a good receiving talent. We've talked about this before on the pod. They had been using him even as a wide receiver because, of course, Penn State hasn't had any great wide receivers forever. So in 2024, he was split out wide. He caught some touchdowns as a slot receiver. He looks like a guy who's talented enough that they can use him all over the field, which is great. So there's a very much a future for him with a role in an NFL backfield, especially now where there's very few that are dominated by one running back. So he'll be able to chip in. It's just, for me, the cost is way too high at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what I've been seeing in a lot of circles is that he's expected to go late day 2, early day 3. And I feel like draft capital and landing spot are going to be massive for him as far as determining where he's going to go in his career.
And it's such a shame though, because I think with him, we know how athletic he is, right, Chris? We've talked before about all the weight room records that he set, right? Breaking Saquon's record, I think, was it the squat over 600 pounds? He bench pressed over 400. Like, we know what an athlete, the tier of athlete that this dude is on par with Saquon. Now, I'm not saying that he is Saquon Barkley, obviously not, but when you total his body of work, production, it's on par with what Saquon did out there. And so with that level of athleticism, he ran 23 miles per hour according to Bruce Feldman's Freaks List. I'm still going to bank on that upside at cost. Now, I'm absolutely with you. If I'm having to pay second round rookie draft capital, I'd rather have somebody else. But I'm hoping that now people really forget, especially with the broken foot. It's kind of like, damn, here we go again, right? Broken foot on top of this hellacious season, I'm out. And I'm hoping that people are taking that same mindset and like, I'm out, and then I can capitalize and take him in the later rounds because I'm going to bank on that talent. I don't think that he's a guy that can go on a team and just operate solo and be the primary guy. I think he's always going to be relegated to more of a committee role like he always has been with the fat man, Katron Allen there at Penn State. And I think that he could really find a role that would be conducive for fantasy success. You mentioned his receiving profile and his work. I mean, over almost 1,000 yards receiving at his career at Penn State. It's truly incredible what he could do. If you can get him in a team that just feeds him some receiving work like that, or he's able to take it to the house, then I'm in. But of course, you touched on some of the negatives, and it's something that I've knocked on him for a while. We both have. It was just his vision. Like, he gets this tunnel vision type look, like he's going to go right where the play's designed, and he's not able to see the cutback lanes. And for somebody so athletic and so fast, you would think that he'd be able to make defenders miss more, but he's not because he's a little stiff in the hips and he doesn't really have that wiggle that you would expect of a top tier athlete. So definitely some big holes in his game. And you saw Katron Allen kind of take over the backfield, but I'm still in because, as I told Benny today, as we were texting, I did go back and look at the 24 tape just to be reminded of what he can do when he's at his best. But go ahead,
So-
Ben. Go ahead and speak dirty to me about Damon Claiborne, who you got right there at number 7.
Yes, sir. So Damon Claiborne, right? He's again another small guy like Jamari Taylor, but lighter, right? So 5'10", 195. But he's kind of the scat back, the guy who is really good in the receiving game, right? And one thing that I actually found on him was he had a 5.10 season this year. So averaged 5 yards per carry, 5 yards per reception, and had 10 plus touchdowns. So
Love that.
yeah, so Damon Claiborne going to Wake Forest. I think the level of competition is just a little bit tougher than in the Big Ten with Nick Singleton. But I want to take my shot on a guy like Damon Claiborne in the late second, early third over a guy like Nick Singleton. Just personally, with Nick Singleton, going back to Nick Singleton, I think what you said there, Chris, about him kind of ceding the backfield to Katron Allen was a concern for me. Like that, we talk about like 2024, 2023. We can't forget 2025 and how concerning that was, and basically being kind of the 1B in that offense. So I think Damon Claiborne opens it up with a lot more upside to me. And a comp that I had for him was kind of like a Kenneth Gainwell, a little bit of Nyheim Hines, where they're the utility guys, scat back, perfect for a committee offense. How did you feel about it, Dustin?
With Claiborne, I struggle with his frame. I think that he's just really light. And so, I mean, rationalizing my list here, the reason why I put Nick Singleton ahead of him is because I think he's as dynamic of an athlete with a bigger frame. I mean, Nick Singleton's 224 pounds, who can run a 4.340, confirmed laser time 4.340. You cannot convince me that if he was able to run at the combine, people would not be talking about that athleticism and talking themselves back into him. So for that reason, like you're talking about Claiborne being in a committee role, catching the ball, those are all skills that Nick Singleton has presented for a long time, going back to when he was a 5-star recruit and when he was an early breakout. I absolutely agree with what you're saying with you can't forget 2025, but I also think you can't completely wipe out all the body of work. I think that there was some factors, like the more I really dug into it, Chris, and I'd be interested to hear your opinion. I found out that Penn State was calling a lot more inside zones, inside type, like in between the tackles, and that's never been his game. Whereas likewise, that's where Katron Allen really feasts. And it's not like Nick Singleton wasn't still relatively productive with those touchdowns. I mean, I just think that when we're talking for fantasy projection, I think that he presents some of the most upside with any back in this class, of course, aside from some of the top tier guys here. But it wasn't that long ago that we were talking about Nick Singleton as a black belt in the dojo, guaranteed at least late first round pick, second round pick. And I just, for the life of me, cannot forget about that. But you are absolutely right. You cannot discount 2025. It's knocked down its price. You don't want to be struggling heading into the draft. And that's kind of where I stand with it. And I like Damon Claiborne a lot. I really do. Obviously, I have him here at 8. Just when I'm picking between these two, that was really just the differentiating factor, was just the frame. But I do love his receiving upside. He's fast as hell, man, out there. Like he's a lot of fun to watch. He had some ball security issues, but there's a lot of backs coming into college that they just need to clean that up. I think that if he begins to lock that wrist, like Claiborne kind of holds the ball out a little bit and does some move, and sometimes he'll present that ball to a linebacker, and it's really easy to pop out. As a defender, you see that, boom, you can attack. If he does something like Jeremiyah Love is incredible at this, and we'll get to it. Every time Jeremiyah Love crosses the goal line, he's got the ball up tight, and he's locking that wrist in here, so you cannot pop that thing out. I would just like to see a little bit more refinement in his game in that aspect, but I can't argue with it. Obviously, we all really like Damon Claiborne here.
Yeah, for sure. And to your point, you are correct. It seemed like they utilized both backs very much in the way that they needed to be used in 2024. And every Penn State fan was going to tell you that this year the OC was just absolutely horrible. And I mean, we've just talked about it. It was a nightmare season for us. We came in number 2. We were projected to potentially make it to the national title, especially after what we did, where we were just inches away in 2024. And the offense was really bad. Drew Aller got hurt, but they were definitely not using the running backs the way that they should have been utilized. And it almost seemed like they just gave it up to Katron because he had been the one that was performing better, but he was the one that was put in a better position to perform. So Singleton got a little bit of the short end of the stick. I mean, they were both 1,000-yard rushers the year before. And to that point, Katron is the all-time leading rusher in Penn State history, and Nick Singleton is the all-time leading rushing touchdown scorer. So they both are record holders at Penn State, which is awesome. They came in together as freshmen. They both have a piece of Penn State history now, and that's, we all know how good the Penn State backs have been. Even recently, obviously, Saquon, Larry Johnson back 20 years ago was fantastic. We've had guys like Evan Royster, Miles Sanders come in and be contributors. So it's been a very good place for running backs to go. And both of them have now cemented themselves as even better than a lot of them. Unfortunately, it's just been a rough year for Nick. And he's stuck in that. Now he's broken and he can't have a way to redeem himself. So I know why people are saying he's a sleeper. And I know why people are ranking him as high as 7th or even more high, higher than you, Dustin.
Yeah, I think Chris, like a lot of places. Sorry to cut you off there. I've seen a lot of rankings here recently. Just looking at them, a lot of people have him at like 4 or 5 in the dynasty community.
That's too high for me, obviously.
That's too high.
And I even like Damon Claiborne more because I just think he's just so, when I watch his tape, he's just so shifty, which you alluded to. Nick Singleton doesn't necessarily have that aspect to his game where he's very talented, big bodied, athletic running back, but he doesn't have that shiftiness. And when I look at Damon Claiborne, he's shifty, the way he moves his hips and moves his head, does head fakes to get defenders on skates. It almost looks like a wide receiver at times. So I kind of enjoy that, receiver running routes. I enjoy that out of him. I think that there's a good chance that he has the same kind of allure to an NFL GM and gets drafted a little bit higher than Nick Singleton. But also, if people are projecting Nick Singleton in day 2, I'm just not there, man. If he gets it, great. If he gets it, great. But I'm still probably not going to hit the button. If we're talking about the same thing in May, I might not hit the button on Nick Singleton. I'm still committed to my game, and we talk about it all the time here at the dojo. You got to stick to your training, man. Trust your training. Think what you think and stick to it. You don't want to change your opinion just because the masses are saying it. But we'll move on. We've dawdled on these two guys forever, and of course we have just alluded a little bit to Katron Allen, and I have Mike Washington at number 5. You both have Jadarian Price, but this is a great launching point for us all to talk about Katron Allen, who, as I just mentioned, is the all-time leading rusher for Penn State and an absolutely great guy, nicknamed Fat Man. Fun player. I'll let you guys dive into the analysis.
Yeah, so Fat Man, Katron Allen, as you alluded to, Chris, broke the record for the most yards in Penn State history. Of course, did it in one more season than Saquon, but it's still impressive nonetheless. It's awesome to hear. Not only that, but like you said, Nick Singleton breaking the touchdown record. The thing for Katron Allen is he, to me, compared to Nick Singleton, where Nick Singleton is more of like that ceiling guy, where he's kind of lower, but like there's so much athleticism there that he could be kind of the guy on an NFL offense if it all falls right. But for me, Katron Allen is more of your floor guy. I feel like he provides that rushing upside. And being able to be more of that power back in that Lightning and Thunder duo at Penn State, where he kind of lacks home run speed. He's got really good vision, patience, and a sturdy frame, just being at 5'11", at 220, almost 230 pounds. But I really like Katron Allen as a day 2 guy. And yeah, I mean, I didn't do a lot of deep dive on Katron Allen. I definitely got, some highlights in, did a little bit of all 22 from one of their games throughout the season, but I like a lot there, man. I do think that it's likely easily a day 2 pick right there.
Yeah, you look at the numbers, and everybody knows I'm a film guy, but even when you put on Katron Allen's numbers in this draft class, he has the second most missed tackles forced. As far as yards after contact, he's number 2 as well. 792 yards after contact, 57 missed tackles forced. for a guy who's known to be a little bit more of that thunder kind of power role in that committee, he's got that wiggle. That's where he doesn't have those like stiff hips that Singleton has, and he's able to make a defender miss or power through them. He's very consistent, like you said. I like that you said he's not really the absolute ceiling play, but he's very dependable. You know what you're going to get. Freshman season, over 800 yards. Second season, over 800 yards. Final 2 seasons at Penn State, over 1,000 yards, 39 rushing touchdowns. Like, he's just a productive back because there's no wasted motion behind in the backfield. He's going to see the hole, hit it, cut. He could press the line and go. Like, he's got a decent little burst there. I wouldn't say he's the most athletic guy, but he just wants it more than people out there. Big fan of Mr. Katron Allen out there. And there's some like big time draft wigs out there really ripping this guy. I think Lance Zierlein the other day had said something. I shared it in the Discord with you, Chris, was just ripping this guy to pieces and said he had an undrafted grade. And I'm sitting there going like, are we watching the same thing out here? Like, Katron Allen was like the lone bright spot for Penn State this season. He took over the backfield. Okay.
Lance Zierlein also comped Denzel Boston to Puka Nacua. So
there you go.
Yeah, that's a terrible call. He's a product now of he once was good and now he's just spitting off hot takes to get more clicks. Unfortunately, that's what a lot of people fall victim to, and I hope we never do here at the Dojo. I always want to talk about our own takes straight from the heart, which is the whole point. What do we believe in? And he's just gonna fire off more tweets to get more views and more clicks and whatever. Unfortunately, Katron is exactly that. Like you said, he's a great floor play. He's always going to have a role in an NFL backfield. I comped him a little bit, I think, on Fantasy Goats recently too. Jeremy Bernard, who's another guy who I've liked as a wide receiver, but they have similar ceilings and floors, I think, at their respective positions, where they're always going to be involved because of the way they play the game. And they don't necessarily have that monster ceiling, but there's a real shot that Katron Allen's a guy that you take in the second round of rookie drafts, and he's an immediate flex play, and he's probably going to stay there, might have a chance to become your RB2. He's never going to be a top end running back. He's going to be dependent a lot on touchdowns at the NFL level and a lot of those short game packages. He's going to be taken off the field for a satellite back. Maybe he'll get paired with Nick Singleton again. Who knows? That would be fantastic. Or a guy like Jamari Taylor or something like, one of those guys. Give him a satellite back, something like that could be a little bit more fluid out there, and then let him be the thumper, which is why I like him. That's why I have him at 6, because I feel like 6 is a safe play. And as I talked about earlier in this conversation, the top 5 are tough for me to, really the top 2 through 5 are tough for me to rank, because it's definitely a tier break between Jeremiyah Love at the top and then these guys that we're about to talk about. I have Mike Washington Jr. right here at 5, and I don't want to talk too much about him because Dustin is certainly the expert on him. And the more I've watched him, the more he's rised up my ranks. Obviously, he had a fun year here at Arkansas. It's just the 5 ranking for me is a product of me just liking the other guys ahead of him a little bit more. But he's a great talent, and I think that he's got a real shot to be a true 3-down back in the NFL, which is fun, right? And he might have a better shot of being a 3-down back than some of these guys ahead of him. But I'm swinging for upside with some of these picks that I have ahead of him, including Jadarian Price. So I'll save the Mike Washington talk for our next roundabout. I'll let you guys chip in a little bit with Jadarian, and then I'll jump in after.
Yeah, okay. I did find it interesting that at 6, we all had Katron Allen across the board. And then 5, Ben and I are pretty similar right there. Jadarian Price. And then you have Mike Washington. Ben, I know you got a lot of thoughts about Jadarian Price. So go ahead and give it to me, man. Number 5 here for both of us.
Yeah. So, Chris is absolutely right that, like, after Jeremiyah Love, it does get tough to rank these guys between 2 through 5. For me, I felt like I broke it down into tiers. And so, like, I won't, like, give away the running backs that I have, but the reason why I have Jadarian Price so low is because of the experience behind Jeremiyah Love and basically being a backup, right? I was even telling Dustin when I was watching his tape, doing his profile some weeks back, when you go to his All-22, it's literally half the amount of time watching his tape because he just hasn't seen the field as much. And, we talked about before, and I think you guys have mentioned on episodes before, it would have been great for him to go back for one more year to get more experience and be the guy. But I think the reason why he's coming out now is it really is a scarce class this year. And so if he can drive up his draft capital and go day 2, he's going to end up being on our dynasty rosters, being drafted in the second round. I mean, I've seen him go into the late first round in mocks as well. The thing for me with Jadarian Price as well is the things that he's good at. He's got lead acceleration and burst. He really, his one cut explosiveness is really what makes his game. And I do think when he tests out at the combine, he's going to be a high 4.3, low 4.4 guy. And he's got natural receiving hands. I mean, when I look at one of the games that really stood out to me in 2025, it was the game against Purdue. And this is a game where he is one of the few running backs in college football to score 4 touchdowns in one game. He scored three rushing touchdowns and 1 kickoff return for 100 yards. This guy had multiple 100-yard kick returns on the season. He's extremely dynamic. But some of the other problems I have with his profile is that, again, besides the limited workload experience, he has an issue with ball security, right? When you have only 113 carries in 2025, when you have 3 fumbles, that looks not great. And that's going to be something that he's going to have to address at the next level. And the other thing too, right? Like, running backs have to be better at this than most other positions is pass protection, right? And that was something where he's going to require more refinement. He's got to be able to recognize a little bit more of what the defensive schemes are to be able to be trusted in pass protection at the next level. But I am excited for Jadarian Price. I think a lot of people have him as their RB2, and I just can't get that high.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I love Jadarian Price. I think that 5 is a fair spot because as you touched on, we don't have a lot of tape on him. No, what we do have is very efficient and very explosive, and that's the good stuff. When you turn on the All-22, though, there are some issues. I have issues with his vision at times, specifically when there's congestion in the line. Like when you got to get skinny and go through there, he's got those wide set, like his feet are sticking out, and he's tripping over his own lineman, or somebody's able to get him. It's just small little nuances like that that I think would allow him to take his game to the next level. Because when he hits that open field, he's got the speed to go, and he runs with physicality. Sometimes a little too much. Like he's one of those guys that'll kind of like seek out contact instead of just continuing on or making a defender miss. Like he wants to go hit somebody. That's all good and dandy, but just little nuances like that with refinement, like you said, and he could really take his game to the next echelon, I think. So all the talent in the world, very, very deserving of this top 5. And, for as much as we wanted him to go back to South Bend, for a chance to be the guy, to develop those little things, I also understand it because looking down the pipeline, we've talked about this before, 2027 looks like it's going to have some really, really good running backs at the top. And then a lot of the depth that would have been in this class have also now, they're staying in school and they're going to come out in 2027. So like the back end talent of this draft now became the depth of 2027. So looking down the pipeline, I think it was a wise business move. Landing spot is again going to be crucial for him. Is he going to be a guy that's has to go out there and be the guy right away? I don't know. I think he has the talent to make up for it. But at this level, everybody is an athlete. Everybody's going to take you down. And I worry about his instant success with the amount of hype that has been pressed on this man. And I get it. His efficiency metrics are great. He's very explosive. There's a lot of things to be excited about. But I'm just a little lower than consensus on him. But that doesn't mean that I don't believe in the talent. That doesn't mean that I don't believe he's going to be good. I directly witnessed one of those kickoff returns against my USC Trojans this year. Like we had just scored. We moved down the field and we scored in a very tight game. And this dude just breaks it for over 100 yards and it completely flipped the game. Notre Dame never let go of that momentum. And I think he's going to bring that to an NFL team. Like I talked about, is he going to have to be the guy right away? I don't know, but he's going to present that special teams upside and value as well to an NFL franchise, which is going to vault up his value in the NFL draft. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he is a second round pick, like a late late second round pick.
I really like this guy, and I'll just go ahead and unveil the next two. I have him at number 3. Jadarian Price for me is one of those guys, and like I said, it was tough to rank these guys, but I'm swinging for the fences because I love his explosiveness, his speed. He's a guy who I wasn't very high on coming into this offseason, but the more I watched tape and the more I started to rank these running backs, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to take a shot on him because I really, really enjoy the tape. He's extremely explosive. He's a home run threat like crazy. I compare him a little bit to Kenneth Walker, where, it's been a very frustrating ownership if you have him on your dynasty rosters, but what Kenneth Walker can do coming out of Michigan State. I was very high on him. He's obviously gained a little bit of steam now that he's the Super Bowl champion and what he did in the playoffs, but he's been stuck in this sort of committee role, which is what we've seen out of Jadarian. He's been unfortunately placed in a backfield with Jeremiah Love, who's a stud in his own right. So he hasn't been able to like extremely show off his stuff. And we have both talked about it, Dustin. We wanted him to go back to school just to see what he could do as like the lead dog in a backfield. But I'm starting to think that it makes sense that he came out, just like you said. This is a weak draft class. He's got a real shot to get high capital, and with the running back position, you might as well take the shot while you can. I'm sure he would have got paid pretty well to go back to Notre Dame, but he wants a chance to go play against better competition and prove his worth there, and you got to give him credit for that, absolutely. And I would honestly love to see him in Denver playing for your Broncos. If he played for a Sean Payton offense, man, wheels up, dude. I think he's just so explosive. And, we've seen a little bit of fumble issues with him, but we know what he's capable of doing, both, as you mentioned, in kick returns and as a running back. So I think he's a talented running back, and I'm willing to put him here at number 3 because of that upside shot compared to some of the other guys.
Hey, we get him in Denver. He goes up my rankings. That's just the rules, right?
Absolutely,
he's a Bronco. Yeah. I got to put him at 2. Like, obviously, always believed in him. I promise. But you had a guy there at number 5 that Ben and I both have at number 4, and of course that's Mike Washington Jr., aka Mia Moore. Like, I love this dude. His tape was one that really spoke to me. And this happens every draft cycle. There's always 2 or 3 running backs that just speak to me and I fall in love with them. That was Mike Washington Jr., who really wasn't on my radar until like the Senior Bowl. When he ran 21 miles per hour, I was like, hey, now I did see him on tape go off a couple times, but I didn't think anything of it because of, the age and other factors. But when you go back and look at his backstory, COVID happened right during his senior season in high school. As a junior, he broke out for over 1,400 yards. He was looking like he was on the precipice of being a 4-star to potentially 5-star recruit. And then COVID happened. They completely shut down their high school football season. So no football. It directly impacted his recruiting. He's stuck close to home at Buffalo. And, that he had some success there. He still has the program's longest rushing touchdown in program history. Eventually, he works his way to Arkansas. And look, he just completely broke out this season. He shows that 21 miles per hour on tape consistently. And for a back that's 6'2", 228 pounds, he has no problem with that wiggle, man. He can move. He can jump cut. He could set up defender or blocks down the field, manipulate the defenders with his movements, or just lower his shoulders, deliver the boom, and just keep it moving. We saw against Texas where he made a defender miss, ran down the sideline, lowered his shoulders, and he knocked the dude down, and then he continued on for a touchdown. And I think that anytime you get a back with that much speed and power combo, you have to vault them up. We saw it with Omari and Hampton. Now, I'm not saying he's on that level quite yet, but we did see this example with Omari and Hampton. Once we confirmed those testing speed numbers on top of how he's built physically, he really vaulted up and became the consensus 102 in that class. For me anyways. So I could talk all day about Mike Washington. He's just very, very gifted, of course. Ben, do you have any other thoughts there on Mike Washington?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that, I actually just found out today he's 6'2", 228. Yeah. That's Derrick Henry size. Yeah. And to see the quickness that he has and his ability in the pass catching game, it's pretty incredible to see that from. And I mean, I guess you've watched a lot more tape for Mike Washington, Dustin. Where what do you think pushed him down so much? Was it all of that history with, the transfers, COVID, everything else like that? I just feel like this just kind of came out of nowhere until we saw it at the Senior Bowl. And for me, Mike Washington has been talked about as possibly being a day 2 guy.
Actually, a really good question that you asked there, Ben, and I found myself asking the same thing. So I went 11 games deep on this dude, combined from here to his time at Buffalo, and I was looking at the numbers on PFF between his splits, zone, and gap. He primarily ran zone, or excuse me, gap concepts, I believe. And then I found that while he does good in that, he's so good about pressing the line, finding a hole and cutting back and using that like one cut ability to just boom, hit it and go. And then either lower his shoulders or make somebody miss. Like when he didn't have to think, he does good in both schemes, but you saw the numbers go this way for that type of usage once he got to Arkansas. And I think that directly impacted it. And I think it was just a better fit. I think he was definitely motivated too. After he left Buffalo, he reportedly had a coaching staff member tell him that he wasn't talented enough to go play in the SEC. And I think he might have just been a little motivated. And you know what? He showed up and he showed out. Very, very productive this season, as we know. I get some of the hesitation behind him, like because you do naturally ask yourself, why did it take this long? Because I always do that. Like I do that with these super seniors that are just bullying up or lower classmen, underclassmen. I didn't see that with Mike Washington. I saw him kind of like his speed sneaking up on defenders, and they thought they could get it, like, because he does kind of run upright. On my notes, I put he needs to lower his shoulders a little bit, which he will do, just not consistently enough for me. But that's naturally going to happen when you're 6'2". Like you're going to be a little more upright. But when he does lower the shoulders, he lowers that boom, size speed combo. I mean, what more do you want from a guy? I think he wasn't necessarily used as a receiving threat, but he shows soft hands, and I think there's some receiving utility there. He's not going to be like a Jameer Gibbs out there. He's not going to be running Texas routes, these option routes, but he's going to take the screens at the dump offs, and he's going to use that athleticism, to get good yardage, good chunk yardage. So I'm all in on the dude, man. I mean, now we wait to see the draft capital. We'll wait to see how these NFL scouts feel about him. But I know one thing about NFL scouts, and they love athleticism. They love traits. And this guy is very much a traits back.
Yeah, and I don't want to like wish cast too much, but obviously he had a very talented quarterback behind him who could also run the ball. So when you
Yes.
have those quarterbacks that are running the ball, a lot, and they're willing to, instead of dumping off, they're going to take the ball and run with it themselves. That kind of takes a little bit off their plate as a running back. So I feel like there's a little bit of untapped receiving potential that we didn't necessarily see on the stat sheet out of him, where he could have seen a little bit more screens, a little bit more short passes, and taken those a little bit further to boost up his overall profile coming into this draft. So I do like this guy a lot. Obviously, I have him at 5, just slightly lower than you guys. But like I said, that this 2 through 5 for me is extremely close. It's a tight
Yeah.
race for all these guys. I think they're all really talented. I think they're all worthy of day 2 draft capital, and it'll be interesting to see what happens here come the NFL draft. And then that leads me to my number 4, which is Emmett Johnson, who you both have locked in at number 2. I'll do that little sneak preview here. I like Emmett Johnson a lot. And again, I don't want to talk too much about him because you guys are a little bit more well-versed on him, but he had an absolutely phenomenal season this year. 88.1 run grade on Nebraska. And I believe Ben had alluded to this earlier in the show, but he leads all of this draft class in missed tackles forced at 68. And one of the things I said in a recent episode, I believe on the dojo with Dustin and I, was about his receiving ability. I said I didn't know if necessarily I saw a full-blown receiving workload for him at the NFL level, but he did have 46 receptions for 370 yards this year, which is a lot. He was targeted 54 times. I mean, that's really good for a running back. And then when I went back and watched some tape, I'm like, you know what? I think he's right. Dustin might be a little bit more apt on this guy. He might have had the better read on him at first glance than I did. He probably does have a receiving future in the NFL, and he's one of those guys who also could be a potential 3-down back at the NFL level. So he's another one that I think if he gets that day 2 capital, especially if he goes in round 2, which I really think he might. And for a while I had him at my 3rd overall running back in this class. I think he's got a real shot to be an immediate producer at the NFL if all things break right. But obviously, I've given the if you're watching on YouTube, I've given the preview here. You both have him at number 2. Jonah Coleman is the guy who you guys both have at number 3, and I have at number 2, who's another guy who I feel is similar in that manner, where he's certainly a running back first, but can chip in a little bit receiving. Maybe not so much as Emmett Johnson, but I like what I've seen out of Jonah Coleman whenever they get the ball in his hands and when they do it through the passing game. But really, what's impressed us, as we've talked about multiple times on the dojo this year, has been he's slimmed down a lot. He's become a little bit more of a functional NFL type running back. I had compared him to Maurice Jones-Drew coming into this year, and then he showed up way, way slimmer than we thought he would be. He lost a lot of poundage, and the year didn't quite pan out like we thought it would for him. He didn't have nearly as good of a 2025 as he did in 2024. But when you look at his overall body of work and all of the metrics and the whole career, man, this is a guy who I think somebody's going to fall in love with. Draft him pretty early. I think he's got a good shot to be the second running back taken in the NFL draft. And somebody's going to say, let's just plug and play him right now. An RB needy team might say, this is the guy. But I'll let you guys chime in since you guys both had him at number 3.
We've talked about him so much in this podcast. In the offseason, he was a dude that I was really hyping up to, and again, looked really good there for a while. Week 1 versus Colorado State, my alma mater there. He tore him up, and he looked a lot like he looked like he had a lot more functional burst out there after slimming down to, he went from 231 to 220 something. It was pretty good out there, like 8% body fat. He looked really explosive. He still had that wiggle, but still would run with power. Everything you said, your analysis was spot on, Chris. Unfortunately, it was just kind of like those nagging injuries, and it really slowed him down. And then they had Muhammad come in to supplement him after, and he looked pretty good in that backfield as well. So, I mean, it thankfully didn't impact his draft stock too much because people still remembered what they saw before. And then, as the season went on, when he was able to play, he still looked like Jonah Coleman out there. His numbers against Ohio State weren't the best, but he did so good. And this is one of his strengths, is the ability, like his vision is so good. He can set up blocks before the defender even knows what's going on. Like he can set up his blocks so well. And he got Caleb Downs. He did Caleb Downs so dirty, man. He feigned this way, got Caleb Downs to come in and then just cut back and was able to get a solid 8-9 yard gain. When you are able to do that to one of the most cerebral and one of the most impactful defensive players in the country, and Caleb Downs, who I think is worthy of being taken as high as number 2 overall in the NFL draft. He won't because he's a safety, but whatever. That's just incredible. And playing against that level of competition and being able to do that just really impressed the hell out of me. But you saw that receiving ability even when he was 230 some pounds. When he was 230 pounds, he was hurdling dudes out there. Like he's an underrated athlete out there, I think. Now he's never going to break one for like 80 yards or anything like that, but he'll consistently get you 15, 20, and he's going to get those goal line carries. A comp that we've used for him for a while is David Montgomery, right? The football god. Remember, Benny? That was one of our talks with Chris early in the season. The football god, David Montgomery, is the official comp for Mr. Jonah Coleman. Did you have anything else to add, Benny?
Yeah. So what I really like about Jonah Coleman too is, and something that probably doesn't get talked about enough, but is really important to the next level, is ball security. The guy only fumbled twice in his career in college out of 640 carries. And the other thing too is he's only dropped 1 pass in his last 88 targets. So last 88 receptions. So this guy knows how to keep his job on the field, in the sense that that's the first thing at the NFL level that's going to get kicked you right to the sideline.
Of course, Ben and I both had Emmett Johnson as number 2. You had Emmett Johnson as number 4. I mean, it's splitting hairs here. To me, 2 through 4, maybe even 2 through 5 would be an entire tier for me. What do you guys think of that? Would you consider 2 through 5 kind of like its own tier?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I mean, it's splitting hairs here, but Emmett Johnson is a guy that I was on a long time ago. You talk about being the entire offense. Emmett Johnson was the entire offense because, of course, Dylan Raiola went down. Ja'Cory Barney really wasn't able to get much going out there. Dane Key was a disappointment, big-time transfer addition for them. And everybody knew where the ball was going to go through. Everybody knew who the offense was going to funnel through, and it was Emmett Johnson, and he just consistently delivered. In fact, he led the country in rushing yardage, 1,450 on the year, 12 touchdowns, 68 missed tackles forced. That all leads this class right now. Of course, Chris, you alluded to him being a receiving threat. I've been on that for a while. He is the second best receiving back in this class behind Jeremiyah Love, who, of course, we will talk about very shortly. So I think his potential is through the moon. Of course, the biggest knock is just going to be that he's 200 pounds. But at 200 pounds, 740 yards after contact, that's 2.95 yards after contact per attempt. So for a little guy, I mean, he's still pretty physical out there. And when you turn on the tape, it explains what the numbers show you. He's scrappy out there for a little guy. Like, he's going to make you move. He might be the most elusive back in this class with his wiggle that he's got. I mean, he makes some defenders look silly out there, but when he has to, he's going to put his shoulders down. He's going to try to spin out, do a little stiff arm. Like, he's going to keep fighting. He's got some dog in him, man. And we've talked about in this podcast, that matters to us in our evaluation. You have to show me that you want to be good. You have to show me that you're willing to put your life on the line for that team out there just to get that first down, just to get the touchdown. And I saw that in spades in his tape. So Emmett Johnson's been locked in. I know for Benny as well, RB2 for a while. We had a pretty good little discourse over this in our dojo chat there, of course, with the Shinobi Josh there. Why don't you go ahead and talk about your boy here, Benny, Emmett Johnson?
Yeah. So Emmett Johnson, talk about the ceiling of what he could be. You know, a couple of years ago, we had Bijan Robinson entering in as one of the best running back prospects in years. And now we have Jeremiyah Love, who we're going to talk about soon enough, who I just can't get enough of, man. And who was the running back 2 in that class that came out with Bijan was my own Jahmyr Gibbs. Here's the thing, guys. He was the 7th running back in Big Ten history since 1956 to record over 1,400 yards rushing and over 350 yards receiving. One of your guys, Chris, Saquon Barkley, did the same thing. And so, to me, Emmett Johnson is one of the most dynamic backs in this class. Most missed tackles forced, leading the class in receiving and rushing. He's right up there. I mean, he's not in the same tier as Jeremiyah Love yet, but he has the upside to be, hell, we saw Jahmyr Gibbs go pick 12 a couple of years ago. What's the chances that we see a mid-day 1 draft capital for Emmett Johnson if the right team falls in love with him?
I like that notion because it's such a weak class overall, and I think there's some decent defensive prospects in this draft, but you never know, man. An RB needy team, especially a playoff team maybe, that's not wanting to pay their running back or whatever, they might take him, and maybe not mid, but in the early 20s, something like that. I think that's entirely possible. And last but not least, of course, we all have Jeremiyah Love at number 1, which should be a surprise to literally nobody watching this video or listening to this podcast. Jeremiyah Love is unequivocally the best running back in this class. He's extremely explosive. He's entirely versatile. He displays his abilities both as a running back and as a receiver. He's all over the field. He's a dog. And he did it with Jadarian Price, my number 3 guy, even lurking in the backfield. So he's been truly phenomenal. Notre Dame fans, this is nothing to you guys. You've seen him for years. You know what he's capable of. He's truly one of the better running backs we have seen. But before I pass it to you guys for your analysis, I'm going to ask you a question. Would you rather have Genty or Love? If they had come out in the same class, where would you rank them?
All right, this is actually a great question, Chris. All right, and I actually, I'll just follow this up, right? Because I think I told you, Dustin, I took Ashton Genty and I'm gonna call it Rocco here right now because this happened in a real startup that we just did, right? And so I'm in a league where it's 0.25 points per carry, and I decided to just go back to back Ashton Genty and Jeremiyah Love. And I feel like Dustin and I had a pretty good discourse on this separately where, I asked him really, where do you put Genty and Jeremiyah Love next to each other? And really the big thing is, as a prospect, right, Jeremiyah Love is just ahead of Genty. we know what Ashton Genty is in the NFL now. And he put up over 1,000 yards on a terrible offense this last year in his rookie season. But Jeremiyah Love is right there for me with Bijan and Ashton Genty. And it's insane that I feel good about taking him at the 2-1. And Dustin did the same thing in a recent startup mock that we did at the 2-1, because you should feel comfortable about what Jeremiyah Love brings as an future NFL running back.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. To answer your question, Chris, ahead of Genty for me as pure prospect, ahead of Genty, little below Bijan. I mean, it's easy for me. Genty was incredible. Obviously, the yards after contact, even the missed tackles forced, defenders just slip off of him. I just think that Jeremiyah Love offers more fantasy upside with the receiving utility, and that's why I'm going to take him. I think he's a better bet to obviously take one to the house. 99 yards against Indiana, against Boston College. Like, so many times, I forget who he played, but when he got spun around and you thought he was down on the ground and nope, actually I'm going to get up, make a defender miss, move on for like 80 some yards. Dude has that spike week potential, and he's physical too. He's 6 foot, 215. Like he's a very physical back out there. Literally in my notes, Chris, I was like, I personally, because I'm doing his write-up, I'm struggling to find weaknesses in his game. Like I really am. I put he has every tool in the tool bag. You need him to stiff arm a defender, he's going to do it. You need him to spin, he's going to do it. Hell, he'll hurdle over a dude. He did it against USC a couple times. Like he was just hurdling dudes out there. Now, that is ultimately what I did put as one of his weaknesses, is he likes to go for that highlight play and hurdle, and that could get him hurt. But I mean, he even did like a little mini hurdle against Penn State when Abdul Carter was out there, right? That the infamous 2-yard little rush that he had where he was just powering through defenders. We made a short on that where I said that showed the heart of Jeremiyah Love, the want to that he had to get Notre Dame to the national championship. It was all put on Jeremiyah Love out there, and he was not healthy either. He was banged up in the playoffs, and he was still fighting that hard. Again, going back to what we talked about, being a dog and wanting it. Jeremiyah Love wanted it more than most people out there. And of course, then you go back and look at his story and his tremendous parents. He just seems like an all-around good dude, and I'm always going to want to root for people like that. So not much more analysis needed. He's him. He's going to be 101 in your rookie drafts, and don't overthink it. Like, truly do not overthink it, because we've seen running backs have importance in the NFL again. They're still not really getting paid as much as they should, but we're starting to see with the heavier personnel, and we've talked about this a lot too, running backs are going to matter again, and I think tight ends are going to start steaming up a little bit too, with those heavier personnels and having deploying tight ends out there in the receiving game. So locked and loaded 101. He's a tremendous prospect. We are lucky to have him.
Yeah, I think there's a near guarantee he's a top 15 prospect in this class. He's going to go top 15 in this upcoming draft. I think that he's an extremely great talent. I mean, we just saw Bijan go in the top 10. So I think that this is certainly a guy who's locked in. I think to answer my own question, I probably would still have ranked, and this is tough because you have retrospective, but I still would have ranked Genty a little bit higher than him. But it's tough because I'm looking through the lens of this is a guy. This is kind of a plug for you guys to go out and buy him in your dynasty leagues, because I think he led the NFL in yards after contact. If not, he was very close. And his average contact happened before the line of scrimmage. This guy had 0 offensive line this year. So go out and buy Genty. And before I send it to the sensei to give his little outro, I just want to do my own little plug. We, unfortunately, a couple hours ago got the news that Rondale Moore has died by suicide. And I just wanted to send some love to everybody out there who has these rough thoughts. We don't want to see 25-year-olds going the way that he did. And that's extremely sad. So reach out to your friends. There's always help available for you. Reach out to us. You know, we're here to talk to you. So we don't want to see people going the way Rondale did.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Chris. I'm glad you said that. I think everybody has been impacted by suicide. And like you said, just know that this is a temporary moment and everything does pass. Make sure that you have that support system. Reach out if you don't. Like Chris said, we're always available. And I'm just a simple DM away. And I know Ben and Chris feel the same way. So thank you for touching on that. Well, boys, it was fun. I had a blast doing this. We got to do this again, Ben. Huge thank you for coming on, the Devy Scribe, for joining us. Yeah, had fun unveiling our top 10 running backs for the 2026 class. The work that we've been putting in this, guys, is phenomenal. Truly, I've seen a lot of other guides out there. I've been a part of a lot of other publications in the past, and the work that we're going into to detail the full developmental arc, who they were as a high school player coming in, as a recruit, some of the adversity that they faced, accolades achieved, and then really diving into the film and breaking that down in a way that's really understandable and how it's going to translate to your fantasy rosters. I think that we're blowing the competition out of the park. And then our graphics team with Dev, who does all of our graphics works as well, it's truly top tier. So I thank you all for watching this episode. Make sure that you tune in next week, because we're going to have my dog's favorite podcaster on here, Mr. Dynasty Dog Mike. He's going to join Chris and I, and we're going to run through a 2-round mock draft with landing spots, question mark, depending if we could find a good mock draft. But either way, we're going to be bringing that to you guys. And then the next week, we're going back to Devy with our good friend Corey P. He's going to be talking some Devy ball with us. Of course, some of the most impactful transfers and some incoming freshmen that you need to know. So thank you. We got a lot coming, and you don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this content, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I did mention the Discord before. It's free. It's going to be linked in the video description of this. So make sure that you hit that link and you join. Until next time, trust your training.